Mary had a little man.
The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It is with a heavy heart that I come here this afternoon to shed some light on the incident that occurred at the United States Capitol.
The supplemental guard has arrived at South Barricade.
At approximately 1:02 hours this afternoon, a suspect entered what we refer to as the north barricade of the Capitol. The suspect rammed his car into two of our officers and then hit the north barricade barrier. At such time, the suspect exited the vehicle with a knife in hand. Our officers then engaged that suspect. He did not respond to verbal commands. The suspect did start lunging toward U.S. Capitol Police officers, at which time U.S. Capitol Police officers fired upon the suspect. At this time, the suspect has been pronounced deceased. Two U.S. Capitol Police officers were transported to two different hospitals, and it is with a very, very heavy heart that I announce one of our officers has succumbed to his injuries. We are not able to release any information, names, age, date of birth, or anything of that nature at this time because we still have to notify the next of kin. I just ask that the public continue to keep U.S. Capitol Police and their families in your prayers. This has been an extremely difficult time for U.S. Capitol Police after the events of January 6th and now the events that have occurred here today. So I ask that you keep our U.S. Capitol Police family in your thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers, everybody. Thoughts and prayers. It's Friday, you bastards, and America is back. Jobs are returning. Baseball is back. Killing is back. Murder is back. It's all back, you know. I will say it's a good day in this way. Donald Trump is gone. And Matt Gaetz is going. Oh! Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Wow, this story about Gaetz is, it's off the hook. It's really a difficult story. We tried to make our way through it yesterday with you. I think we did that. And now we're trying to learn how this whole thing got rolling. But before we actually get into that, let me just say that the Chauvin trial has concluded for the afternoon. It's Good Friday. It's Good Friday, you bastards. Should we make a cup for that? Should we make it's a Good Friday? Yes, rebirth and renewal to all of you who celebrate the rebirth and renewal. Me, I'm still fleeing. I'm still fleeing. We're still, running, fleeing. And we had to leave so fast that our bread did not have time to rise, hence matzah, just so you know. Okay, so here's what happened at the Capitol, just briefly. Okay, a suspect whose car, if you have news on, not Fox, like real news, then you can see this blue car. This suspect rammed that car into a barricade, hitting two Capitol Police officers. And then the suspect exited the car with a knife and began to lunge at the police officers. We know this because there's videotape of it. And the police officers commanded him to cease and desist, stop, lay down, whatever. He would not obey the verbal commands. He was shot. We saw a helicopter come in to a parking lot earlier, about 1:15 this afternoon. Apparently that was to evacuate not just the police officers, but also the suspect. The suspect has died of his gunshot wounds, and another Capitol Police officer is dead. So Brian Sicknick, he's the one who died on January 6th, just to refresh, right? And then you had 140 other officers. A couple of them lost their fingers. I mean, just crazy, damage to the Capitol Police. And now another Capitol Police officer is targeted, obviously with a car, and he died. He succumbed to his injuries after a car rammed into him at the North Capitol barricade. God bless America. Thoughts and prayers? Anybody? Like what? So this is how we know that America's getting back to freaking normal. How sick and sad. That, and it appears that we have another Republican who's being investigated for pedophilia, sex trafficking in this case. This Get story is so unbelievably bizarre, okay? Now Matt Getz is facing a probe into prostitution, a pay-for-sex scheme. And here's how apparently this whole thing got rolling. We showed you Joel Greenberg yesterday, that Joel is in jail, okay? Rewind the tape, or go listen to your podcast, and you'll see Joel is in jail in Florida. Joel Greenberg has a 33-count indictment. And Joel Greenberg was literally out of jail awaiting his trial, which I think begins in June, until Joel Greenberg, in addition to these 33 counts that are pending against him, that include everything from using his state database as the tax collector in Seminole County, Florida, using his state database to identify underage girls, to create fake IDs for them for the purpose of commercial sex, which is prostitution in indictment terms. In addition to that, embezzlement of $400,000 of tax dollars to buy himself Kobe Bryant sports memorabilia and to start a Bitcoin company. Now we're finding out he wanted certain people, to pay their taxes in Bitcoin. That's also one of the charges against him. But the reason why he's in jail, Joel is in jail, is because Joel began to stalk his freaking wife, his own wife, who fled North Florida and came to Jupiter, Florida, which is, like a couple towns north of where I am in Palm Beach County. It's still, Jupiter is in Palm Beach County, but it's like the northernmost part of Palm Beach County. So the wife left Seminole County and came down to Palm Beach to get away from him. And he tracked her at her mother's house. Her mother called the cops on Joel. That's why Joel's bail was revoked. And that's why Joel Greenberg is in jail. Now, Joel is important because this is where apparently this whole investigation into Matt Getz started. It's a very creepy case. It seems like Joel Greenberg, who was the Seminole County tax collector, after he embezzled fake IDs and was, identifying minors for commercial sex, prostitution, and making false IDs for these various people, he was in the St. Mary's tax office on a Sunday, Elliot, it's Sunday. He never stops working. On a Sunday, and he was apparently making fake IDs in the St. Mary's tax collector's office. This is back in 2018. So that was a Sunday, and apparently he was with Matt Getz that day. They left a big mess behind. They left a huge mess of driver's licenses scattered all over the desks. Monday morning, a employee of the office comes to work, and she sees all these driver's licenses messy, scattered, not in a bin where they normally go when people surrender them because they're expired and they want new ones. And so she decides somebody broke in, and she goes to look at the videotape. On the videotape, which is grainy according to her, she sees Joel and another man. She's watching the surveillance tape and she sees Joel. So she calls Joel and she asks him, "Did you visit the Lake Mary office?" And he says, "Yes, I did. I was with Congressman Matt Getz. I was showing him our operations." And that is the first time that Matt Getz is with Joel doing something illegal. Now, Joel couldn't leave it alone. So he stalked and threatened the employee, who reached a settlement, $50,000, to get him to stop.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
New allegations about Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, a report of a Justice Department investigation focusing on Gaetz and an indicted Florida politician, and allegations of their involvement with multiple women who were recruited online for sex and received cash payments, according to the New York Times, citing sources close to the investigation. The Times reporting investigators are focusing on Gaetz and Joel Greenberg, a former tax collector in Seminole County, Florida, indicted last year and now pleading not guilty to a federal sex trafficking charge and other crimes. The Times, writing Greenberg initially met the women through websites that connect people who go on dates in exchange for gifts, fine dining, travel, and allowances. Great. Mr. Greenberg introduced the women to Mr. Gaetz, who also had sex with them. Oy. According to people close to the investigation who spoke with the Times, some of the men and women took ecstasy, an illegal mood-altering drug, before having sex, including Mr. Gaetz. The Times reports it reviewed scripts from Cash App, a mobile payments app, and Apple Pay that reportedly show payments from Gaetz and Greenberg to one of the women, and a payment from Greenberg to a second woman, according to the Times report. NBC News has not reviewed those documents. Gaetz denied ever paying a woman for sex. And a spokesman says Matt Gaetz refutes all the disgusting allegations completely. The Florida Republican already in the spotlight. After revelations earlier this week, the Justice Department is examining whether Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking laws by having a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her to travel with him.
The person doesn't exist. That is totally false.
The 38-year-old conservative congressman, elected in 2016, has been a staunch ally of former President Donald Trump.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie.
The top House Republican saying Gaetz' seat on the powerful Judiciary Committee could be in jeopardy.
Those are serious implications. If it comes out to be true, yes, we would remove him if that was the case. But right now, as Matt Gaetz says, it is not true. So let's get all the information.
Well, what is true is that Matt Gaetz was in a grainy videotape with Joel Greenberg, who was at the St. Mary's tax collector's office creating fake IDs. And when the employee on Monday morning went and saw the mess, she reviewed the internal videotape and saw Joel Greenberg on the tape, called him up and said, were you in the St. Mary's office? He said, yeah, I was. I was with Congressman Matt Gaetz, and I was showing him our operation is what I was doing. He then stalked and threatened her, okay, to the point where she sued. She quit. She's a former employee now. And she was awarded a $50,000 settlement. And he's in jail now because he stalked his own wife while he was out on bail for 33 other charges having to do with fraud and sex trafficking of minors and fake online. And by the way, another thing he did was when he was up for re-election in 2020, he decided that his opponent, who was a school teacher, should be smeared also. So he created these fake online profiles of this art teacher, okay, who was running against him for tax collector, and he accused her of having sex with a minor student, which is exactly what he was doing. Okay? So he's got 33 counts now. Wire fraud, sex trafficking of 14 to 17-year-olds using the state database for personal information on the minors. And there are photos of him with Matt Gaetz. There's a videotape, obviously, of them together in the tax collector's office, but, creating fake IDs. But there's also photographs of Matt Gaetz with Joel Greenberg in 2016, 17, 2018, 2019, and a phone call with the two of them on it, calling a Muslim lawmaker who serves in the state legislature saying, hey, this is Matt Gaetz and this is Joel Greenberg, and we think you're the future of the Democratic Party. And she's like, that's creepy. I don't know what that was about. But they were together at all kinds of conservative, APAC and, conferences, conservative conferences. Roger Stone, Joel Greenberg, and Matt Gaetz. All right. So now, all of a sudden, there's this furtherance of the story. Okay. The Secret Service began to investigate Joel Greenberg because Joel Greenberg was an official. Okay, he's a tax collector. And so the Secret Service was who opened up an investigation into Joel in the first place. And it turns out that some of the information they had and the girls that they talked to also indicated that they had not just had sex with Joel, but that they had sex with Matt Gaetz and other men that Joel and Matt paid them to have sex with. And there seems to be a paper trail of these payments on Apple Pay and on other cash apps to these minor girls. So, and so now all of a sudden, Matt Gaetz goes on Fox News, and he decides that he's going to go on Fox News and he's going to deny everything. And this is stuff we did not even know about. It was apparently hotly rumored in northern Florida that this was an open investigation into Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg's escapades together, having to do with underage girls. But we did not know about it. The wider public did not know about it. Fox News did not know about it. None of the newspapers knew about it. New York Times didn't. Washington Post didn't. Daily Beast said that they had heard wild rumors about Matt Gaetz for a very long time, but they had no story. They had no story until Matt Gaetz went on Tucker Carlson's show and started over-denying all this and saying that he, in fact, just like Trump used to do, was the victim, right? He was the victim. And that this was an extortion scheme that was, entered into by a lawyer in northern Florida, a guy at a law firm. Now, the guy at the law firm, his last name's McGee. You may have heard Matt Gaetz implicate him. He's denied, he said, what? I was one of 1,000 people who knew this about Matt Gaetz? Okay, great. He said he had nothing to do with this extortion, which isn't even extortion, because there's no demand for money in this letter that I tweeted it out if you want to see it. There's no demand for money in it, and there's no threat if you don't pay the money, so that it can't be extortion. What it seems to be is two people. Bob Kent is a former Air Force intelligence officer. He's one of the people. And the other person is a fraudulent real estate developer named Stephen Alford, okay? These two had heard the rumor about Matt Gaetz, and they decided that their friend from years ago, 2007, who disappeared in Iran, was still alive, and that a way for Matt Gaetz to get out of trouble would be to pay $25 million because the Iranians wanted funds for the release of this man named Levinson, Robert Levinson, who his family says he's dead, and that the Trump administration confirmed that he was dead. But anyway, he's being held hostage and he's alive. And if Matt Gaetz gives $25 million for the release of this man that they could pass off to Iran, who was demanding these funds, Matt could be on the airplane to receive Robert Levinson, come back, and get credit for it.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. There's so many rumors that have been swirling around Matt Gaetz for years. There's always been sort of questions about what he's been up to in his extracurricular life. And, it sort of became a white whale for me. And I've heard all these different allegations. I've heard all the rumors. Members love to talk about Matt Gaetz because no one really likes Matt Gaetz. He doesn't have many friends on Capitol Hill.
And when you say
he's really sort of, yeah, go ahead.
When you say members love to talk about Matt Gaetz, you're not just talking about Democrats, right? You're talking about Republican members.
No, I'm primarily talking about Republicans. Matt Gaetz didn't make friends here. He really attacked Republicans for insufficient Trump support. He was one of those guys who came to Congress right with Donald Trump. And he came here to be an ally of the president, or now the former president. And he made that no mistakes about that. And he went on cable news almost every night and sort of called out a lot of Republican colleagues. He did this most recently with Liz Cheney. He went to her district, the GOP conference chairwoman, and started a campaign against her to have her lose her job in the Republican conference. This is not a man who is very well liked in the Republican conference.
Yeah. He made so many enemies, this man, and he's got dirty, dirty hands, because apparently his dirty little hands is swiping right is what he's doing. Now there's a report, CNN broke it last night, that there are lawmakers, Congress members, Republican ones, who are telling reporters that reporter is Matt Fuller. He's from the Daily Beast, but they're telling reporters on CNN, they're telling reporters at the Daily Beast, they're telling reporters at the New York Times, they're talking to reporters at the Washington Post, okay, and they're telling reporters like Matt Zapotowski and Devlin Barrett. They're telling them that Matt Gaetz, they knew that he was being investigated by the Justice Department for sex trafficking, and that he used to go on the floor of the House, and he still does, that he showed off to other lawmakers photos and videos of nude women that he said he slept with. This is coming from two people who were on the House floor with him and directly viewed the naked pictures. One of the videos apparently was described by a Republican lawmaker to the reporters as being a naked girl with a hula hoop. Yeah, a hula hoop. And that it was a point of pride for Matt Gaetz, this hula hoop girl. Now, this in the summer of 2020, in the final months of the Trump administration, this is when Bill Barr opened up an investigation into Matt Gaetz. Why? Because the investigation into Joel Greenberg actually produced witnesses, and the witnesses were underage, and two of them said that they had also slept with Matt Gaetz, and that there was money changing hands, not just for hotels, not just for drinks of underage girls, not just fake IDs being given to them. No, that there was money being given to them to sleep with yet another person who we don't know the identity of, but it apparently is somebody else in Congress. So that's what's going on now. Of course, Matt Gaetz went on Tucker Carlson's show to try, I don't know, to bring this to our attention, because nobody had ever heard of it. I guess people in northern Florida knew about it, and people in his district in Seminole County, which is way north, right? I guess they understood it. Law firms understood it. I guess Secret Service understood it. The Department of Justice understood it, and people, around the investigation understood that there was an investigation into Matt Gaetz for sex trafficking of minors. But, the media, nobody was reporting on any of it, right? Nobody wanted to report on any of it because it was, I don't know, it wasn't something that was proven, and nobody wanted to talk about any of this until Matt Gaetz went on Tucker Carlson's show. And Matt Gaetz went on Tucker Carlson's show to deny it. And Matt Gaetz said, I'm the victim here. I'm the victim. Why are you the victim? Because I'm being extorted. Who's extorting you? And he named a lawyer. Turns out that lawyer is not somebody that wrote a letter to Matt Gaetz's father, Don Gaetz. No. The lawyer is not a person who wrote a letter to Don Gaetz. There are two men who wrote a letter to Matt's father, Don. And the two people are Bob Kent, who is a former Air Force intelligence officer, and this fraudulent real estate investor who spent he spent a good chunk of time in jail already for fraud. These two men gave a letter, 3-page letter, it was called Operation Homecoming, to Don Gaetz, Matt's father. And in this letter, they outline a plan for Matt to be a hero. The way they envision it is that their friend who was taken hostage in Iran, Robert Levinson, in 2007, is still alive. And Matt would get credit if Don paid $25 million to these two guys. They could get the money to the Iranians who are demanding this money for the release of Robert Levinson, and that they guarantee that Matt could be on the plane when Robert Levinson was freed and brought back to the United States, and that photographers would be there when they got off the plane together, and that Matt would then be seen as a hero. And if he should get convicted of any of these crimes, he would get a pardon because he's an American hero. That's how they saw it, and that's what they wrote. First, they texted Don, okay, Matt's father. Now, why Matt's father, Don? Why did they reach out to him? Two reasons. Don is he's the former president of the Florida State Senate years ago, okay? And now he's a very, very rich man, because Don and the Getz family invested in hospice care, hospices all over Florida. They're called Vitus, okay? Now they're called Vitus. His father owned all these hospice care centers and sold the company a couple years ago, apparently for $406 million. And so his father is a guy who would have that kind of money, who would have $25 million to give to people that are trying to either extort Matt Getz or have some crazy scheme in mind, right? So Don Getz, who is the former president of the Florida State Senate, he's suspicious. So he calls the FBI. And that's how the FBI got involved in this. And now they think that he and Joel have overlap in the girls, the underage girls, that were A, being trafficked for commercial sex, and B, maybe slept with Joel and maybe slept with Matt, which is what two of the girls are saying. And so due to the investigation into Joel Greenberg, Matt gets swept into it, and that's why he's being investigated. Now, the men with the offer, we don't know how they learned about the sex crimes investigation. We don't know. But the lawyer that was named on Fox News, he says everyone knew. Everyone.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
On March 16th, my father got a text message demanding a meeting wherein a person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away. Our family was so troubled by that, we went to the local FBI. And the FBI and the Department of Justice were so concerned about this attempted extortion of a member of Congress that they asked my dad to wear a wire, which he did with the former Department of Justice official. Tonight, I am demanding that the Department of Justice and the FBI release the audio recordings that were made under their supervision and at their direction, which will prove my innocence.
And tonight, the Department of Justice is not commenting on Gates' claims about extortion or about the investigation that the New York Times is reporting on tonight. And we should also say that Gates did actually name this person that he claims, a former Department of Justice official who he claims is at the root of this extortion claim. We're not naming that individual, but we did reach out to that person for comment on Gates' claim and have not heard back as of yet. But as you mentioned, Don, there's a lot about this story that we don't know yet. We should also point out that the Times is reporting that this probe into Gates happened during the Trump administration, and there is not a bigger supporter of the former president than Matt Gaetz.
So that is the person he's talking about there in that report. The person that Matt Gaetz is referring to in front of Tucker Carlson is that lawyer that we mentioned in northern Florida, who finally commented, and he said, what? I'm like one of 1,000 people that knew about this, okay? Like everyone here knew about it. The New York Post, which is a Rupert Murdoch paper, is also reporting on this case, and they are reporting that that it is the lawyer that Matt Gaetz named and the Air Force intel officer, Bob Kent, who reached out to Don, Matt's father, in the first place. I don't know. This story is bizarre. It's complicated. Of course, Matt is saying this is him being victimized. He never did any of these things. And now you have Republican members of Congress saying, well, you don't understand. Matt Gaetz used to stand on the House floor where this would be enough to expel a member of Congress for, dishonorable behavior. But they say that Matt Gaetz would stand on the floor of the House and scroll through, swipe, through naked pictures of girls that he claimed he was having sex with or had sex with on the House floor. Now, Nancy Pelosi says that if any of that is proven to be true, she will have him expelled. She, as Speaker of the House, can expel him. But that they're all going to wait. Everybody's going to wait to see what the investigation that was originally started by the Secret Service into Joel Greenberg, that then fanned out to include Matt Gaetz way back in the day, because Matt Gaetz was on a videotape with Joel Greenberg in 2018 in the St. Mary's office of the tax collector, creating fake IDs on videotape, reported then by an employee who arrived at her job on Monday morning after their Sunday night visit to the St. Mary's tax collector's office, captured them on videotape. Seems like now the Secret Service has looked at paper trails like payment apps, and they see payments going to at least some underage girls for things like hotels and other kinds of payments, and also some cash payments the girls say that they received from Matt Gaetz. So it's a crazy story. It's just it's mind-blowing, because it seems like QAnon might have had a point. There is a cabal of pedos. But who knew? Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what to say. What I can say is that what the Daily Beast reported and what the Post, some of the reporting can be visually seen and heard. There's audio tape too. So one of the stories, I think it was the Daily Beast story, mentioned that there were a whole bunch of photos of Roger Stone in 2017 with these two guys at AIPAC in 2018 and in the White House in 2019, and that there was a phone call that was made to a Florida state legislator named, she's a Democrat, her name's Anna Eskamani, and they left her this very peculiar voicemail. And it's Joel and Matt on the phone saying, and it's Joel, I have it, I'll play it for you. It says, "My dear Anna, this is your favorite tax collector. I'm up in the panhandle with your favorite U.S. Congressman, Mr. Gaetz." And Matt Gaetz jumps in and he's going to go, "Hi, Anna." And then Joel says, "We were just chatting about you and talking about your lovely qualities." And then Matt Gaetz yells out, "We think you're the future of the Democratic Party in Florida." And so the Daily Beast reporter, Matt Fuller, he called her and he said, "What was that? We got a record." And she said, "Look, I've kept these guys at arm's length for years." She said the tax collector guy, Joel, had made some Islamophobic statements and ran into trouble with the Islamic community. And she helped him recover from that. She gave him some advice to help him recover and reconnect with the Muslim community in northern Florida, and that she had gotten many weird contacts from Matt Gaetz and Greenberg, and that the two of them have made her very uncomfortable over the years. All right, so this is the phone call that I've heard. This is Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg calling Representative Anna Eskamani.
"My dear Anna, this is your favorite tax collector. I'm up in the panhandle with your favorite U.S. Congressman, Mr. Gaetz."
Hi, Anna.
"And we were just chatting about you and talking about your lovely qualities. And
we think you're the future of the Democratic Party in Florida."
Well, see, I know you're the future of it, so there's no thinking involved. Anyway, if you get this and you feel like chatting, give me a shout back. Hope you're well. Hope you had a nice 4th. Later."
He's in jail now for stalking various women, okay? for smearing his opponent by creating fake online profiles of her, saying she is a pedophile and she had sex with her students. Not true. Also stalking the girl Amy that worked in the St. Mary's or Lake Mary tax collector's office, who caught the two of them on videotape on a Sunday night making fake IDs. She got a settlement of $50,000 from them, and now he's in jail. His bail has been revoked because he stalked his own wife, and they're best friends, the two of them. It's such a bizarre story. I don't even know. I don't even know, But why did he, so, he's denying it. He's like, listen, my dad wore a wire. Well, if his dad wore a wire, and I believe that happened, and if the FBI is in possession of tapes that Don Getz made with this attorney that Matt Getz says that his dad met with, and with this Air Force, for God's sake, intelligence officer, and with this real estate fraud guy, okay, Stephen Alfaro, I guess is his name. Let's release it. I mean, why wouldn't they? Matt Getz has already, made it known that there's an undercover operation. He's already screwed it up by coming out and saying there's an undercover operation. He's just messed up the undercover operation where his dad was wearing a wire, right, to catch people doing extortion or doing bad things to the Getz family, doing really terrible things to the Getz family. So if that's what Matt Getz wanted to interrupt by making it public that sting operation was going on, then the sting operation is over. Because you can't sting somebody when they know. So let's release the tapes and see what the hell is going on here, because this man is a congressman. And he says there's tape that exonerates him. I would think that it's time to release the tape, wouldn't you? David in Texas. Oh. Tom in Panama City.
Hey, Randy, how you doing? This is Grandpa Tom. Darlene said hello, and she lived.
Oh, hey, Darlene.
I don't know if you remember her or not.
Of course I remember her. She's a young girl. How could I not remember her? She admires me. I admire her.
She even got her hair cut just like yours.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well,
so it's called a long bob.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Oh,
she's redheaded.
It's cute.
Anyway, what I'm going to relay to you, and I don't know if you want to hear it or not, but we were at a party in Seaside, Florida, which is the ultra-rich part of the Panhandle, at the Getz house. And I don't know if you knew that the
Matt
Getz
or
house
Don?
was in Matt.
Matt's house.
Well, I think it's his
hold on.
father's. Okay.
Oh, I hung up. Damn it.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
President Biden adding his voice to the calls to move the MLB All-Star Game out of Atlanta in response to new legislation that restricts voting rights in Georgia.
I would strongly support them doing that. This is Jim Crow on steroids.
Feeling the pressure from black business leaders, activists, and boycott threats, Georgia businesses like Delta and Coca-Cola are now speaking out against the state's new voting law as well.
Let me be crystal clear and unequivocal. This legislation is unacceptable.
But it's not just Georgia. 361 bills to restrict voting rights have been introduced in 47 states as of March 24th, according to the Brennan Center. That's up from 253 restrictive bills as of February 19th, a 43% increase in a month.
Oh! So that's what's going on now, because the Republicans are the Republicans, and they can't win. They understand that the quality of their candidates, their lack of leadership, their inability to address the needs of the American people. For instance, if we were talking about a guy like Matt Gaetz, he decided that during the debate on the relief bill for COVID while Donald Trump was president, he would wear a gas mask on the floor and mock everybody and what we were going through rather than get relief out the door to the American people so that we could get to this point that we're at now, where people are getting vaccinated. People are starting to see their second vaccine. People are starting to be cleared to travel if they've had 2 vaccines and it's been 28 days since the second, even though they're being told still wear a mask, wear a mask. Why? Because there's young kids out there, young kids that are now the host. They're the hostess with the mostest for COVID because us boomers, we got the vax. I've only had one. But honestly, so it's now looking for other places to reside, and it's going to reside in the face of the young kids now, and they just don't seem to give a rat's ass about where they go, what they do, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, but I digress. Okay, this is what's going on in Georgia with this voter suppression bill, and in 43 other states. They're trying to suppress the ability for people to access their voice, access their ballot, because they know that the quality of their response to this COVID pandemic, the quality of their candidates, the quality of their messaging is so below par. It's so disappointing, and it's so non-observable that the only thing that they were able to accomplish in 4 years of having the presidency, the House and the Senate, was to pack the court with, judges, which, quite frankly, if we live our lives, we'll never have anything to do with them, and to redistribute the wealth to the very top 1% of this country. And now Joe Biden is trying to claw it all back for the benefit of our nation by building an infrastructure, by building back better the America that we used to have, because it's been neglected for 40 years. And it's a very popular message. People like it. They like the idea of making the rich pay a little more because they understand that corporations benefit the most from great infrastructure. They get that. Everybody understands that. Intellectually, as Americans, we understand it. And we like it. And the polling on it is fabulous. Okay, people like it. They like the idea of a wealth tax. They like the idea of taxing corporations back to 28%. They like the idea of building America. They like the idea of 500,000 charging stations. They like the idea of manufacturing plants that are going to build semiconductors and batteries and electric cars. They like it. They like it. And so the only thing the Republicans can do is block our access to the ballot in 20 and 22. And so that's what they're trying to do. And so very smart people like Stacey Abrams, who's going to run against Kemp in Georgia for governor, she's going to do it. She has actually said corporate America needs to become involved in this. You got major corporations headquartered in Atlanta. You also have Major League Baseball putting their All-Stars game in Atlanta. And now in Georgia, you've got Augusta, right? You got the PGA. And you know what? Why would you want to be in a state that's practicing Jim Crow? Why? Why would you? I mean, how is that going to benefit your corporate interests when people are willing to say, I'll drink Pepsi, screw Coca-Cola, or I'll fly, JetBlue. I'm not going to fly Delta. I'll fly an airline that's hubbed in New York, or I'll fly an airline that's hubbed in, Denver. I don't have to fly Delta. Well, all of us at American Express is headed by, the Fortune 500 has a lot of CEOs that happen to be African-American people. Merck, the pharmaceutical company, they got Ken Frazier. Ken Frazier is an African-American CEO. Ken Chenault is an African-American CEO who was the CEO of American Express, right? Ed Bastian over at Delta, he said, we get this. And Major League Baseball today, they didn't say where, but they said they're taking the All-Star game out of Atlanta. They're moving it. They're not going to. Now, this is the crazy thing. It's going to be the first time the All-Star game means anything. So that was smart. Because now all of a sudden, I care about the All-Star game. You know, it's like one of the worst games ever. It's like that, what's the football game?
The Pro Bowl is traditionally trash. Well, the premise of the Pro Bowl is
trash.
It's a sport where we hit each other, but in the Pro Bowl, you can't hit each other. The baseball All-Star game in the past has produced some pretty exciting outcomes from time to time. The AL dominates it, but from time to time, you'll have a good game, and now, like you said, it means something.
Right. I could not care less about the All-Star game as much as I really despise when I see Howard. You know, look, I'm one of those women that likes football, okay? I'm a good partner when it comes to sport and sporting events. You know, Howard sits there and he freaking watches golf. He watches it. And I will watch it with him. You know, of course, I'll do a million other things, you know, fold laundry, I'll cook, I'll look at recipes, I'll do whatever to get through it. But I don't complain, you know what I mean? But that Pro Bowl, he puts that NFL Pro, the football Pro, oh my God, I have to walk out because it's such a bogus game. And I feel the same way about the All-Star game. But this year, it will mean something. It will mean something because they're taking it out of Atlanta in protest of this voter suppression effort that Kemp is he signed it. It's law. And just in case, you know, somebody challenges you and says, like Kemp who can't speak English, okay, he said he had to authenticate. I can't even mangle the word the way he did. He doesn't know the word authenticate. He couldn't pronounce it. Anyway, he's like, the only reason why people don't like the law is because they don't know what's in it. Go to randyrhodes.com, click on the homework section. It's free. It's absolutely free. Just go there and you'll see in the homework section a 16-page, point by point, what's in the voter suppression bill in Georgia. And then you'll know everything. You'll know everything you need to know. It is truly a voter suppression law that is, it addresses every aspect of voting, from voting in the wrong precinct to drop boxes to absentee ballots to ID that's going to be required to photocopies of ID that need to be attached to, oh my God, it's very comprehensive to keep you from accessing your ballot. And so, and by the way, it's happening in Texas. It's happening in Arizona. It's happening here in Florida. Florida, they want us to re-register for every election now. Every 2 years, we're going to have to re-register. That's what Ron Death Sentence is thinking about. But Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Iowa, they've no reason to redo their election laws. None. They're redoing their election laws. Florida, like I said. So all of these CEOs have finally gotten involved. And they said, no, we don't want to do business in states where there is massive voter suppression. So what is the cure for all this? Well, very briefly, it's H.R. 1 and S1, the Senate bill. It's the For the People Act. It would override all this.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
And when it comes to protecting the rights of all Americans to vote, there can be no middle ground. We cannot be in the business of creating unjust and undemocratic laws in an attempt to thwart the will of the people. And so what we're saying is this is fundamentally un-American, and corporations have to stand up. There is no middle ground. And so we put together a group starting Sunday afternoon. And this has been a source of conversation over the last 10 days in the Black community and clearly from Blacks in corporate America. So I want to emphasize this is about all Americans having the right to vote, but we need to recognize the special history of the denial of right to vote for Black Americans, and we will not be silent.
So Ken Frazier and Ken Chenault appeared on CNBC. Ken Chenault is the CEO of Amex, American Express, and Ken Frazier is the CEO of Merck, and they put together a group of Fortune 500 black CEOs like Roger Ferguson and Melody Hobbs and John Rogers and Robert E. Smith, who you may have, you may know, and Ray McGuire, and they've teamed up with non-black CEOs, Ed Bastian at Delta and James Quincy at Coca-Cola, and they said this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And they've thrown their support behind the For the People Act, H.R. 1 in the House. Now it's in the Senate, and it's S1. Because that one bill, which will become one bill, what the House passed and then what the Senate has to vote on, if passed, will become one bill. And that one bill would set a bottom beneath which you cannot go with regard to access to the ballot box. It would set a federal standard, a standard that you cannot go below when it comes to registering. See, I've been listening to Brian Kemp. When it comes to registering voters, when it comes to the ease of access of your ballot, when it comes to, drop boxes, or when it comes to, dark money in politics and, transparency, when it comes, and that would be a baseline below which America will not stoop in order to keep people from accessing their voice, the ballot, in an election year. And we have one every 2 years. We're going to have another election in a year. I swear to God. And, guys like Raphael Warnock in Georgia, who won a special election, which so peeved the GOP that they lost these 2 Senate seats in Georgia, okay? John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock were successful in their special elections, okay? And the Senate, the power of the Senate went to the Democrats. Yes, it's a razor-thin majority, and yes, the Senate's got some effed up rules with the filibuster and all that. That's what the effed up, as far as I'm concerned, stands for, filibuster. And so everything needs 60. Everything needs a supermajority. Why? I have no idea. But we want to carve out civil rights bills from money bills, from legislative bills that actually appropriate money, because civil rights are supposed to be accessible and they're supposed to be free and protective. They're not supposed to cost anybody money. Okay, and there are people in this audience that have absolutely no ability to separate things that are not equal from things that are. They can't do it. They just can't do it. It's this crazy comparison to things that are not the same. It happened, like, it's whataboutism is basically what it's called. But the idea that voting is a guaranteed right that is free, they're now comparing it with, well, you have to show ID to get on one of Delta's flights, so I don't understand why the CEO is such a hypocrite. Because voting is supposed to be a right, and it's supposed to be free, and flying on an airplane is a privilege that you have to pay for? Why don't they get that? I don't know. People are non-discerning now. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happened. Could be the lead in the water. Could be the pot. Just saying. Just saying. People are unable. So we now have this intense movement now to protect underrepresented voters from being shunned, from being put through crazy hurdles to impede their right to vote, particularly black voters, to exercise their constitutionally protected right to elect their own representatives. All right?
I invited you on because I was really eager to hear your response as one of the biggest companies in Georgia to the call from Ken, more than 70 black executives, to do more to directly oppose this Georgia legislation. How do you react?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, let me be crystal clear and unequivocal. This legislation is unacceptable. It is a step backwards, and it does not promote principles we have stood for in Georgia around broad access to voting, around voter convenience, about ensuring election integrity. And this is frankly just a step backwards. We've spent many decades promoting within Georgia a better society and a better environment for business, and this is a step backwards. And we're very clear on that, and our position remains the same. This legislation is wrong and needs to be remedied, and we will continue to advocate for it, both in private and now even more clearly in public.
Yay! So that's the CEO of Coca-Cola, James Quincy, okay, saying, no, this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. And we've been privately, telling the Georgia State Assembly, and we've been trying to tell the House there and the governor that, no, we're not going to sit still. Now we're public. Now we're going public is what we're doing. By the way, H.R. 1, and now in the Senate, the same bill is called S1, because it's Senate, right, is very well liked. And having to break the bad news to the to the Koch brothers and this conservative group of people that were on a conservative conference call earlier this week, these are all the stories that are taking a back seat to the Chauvin trial because it's so brutal, the Chauvin trial. But you know what? We need a break. We just do. And they're on break anyway. But Kyle McKenzie, okay, you never heard of him. I never heard of him. He is apparently a researcher for the Koch brothers industries, for like the groups ALEC and all that. And he had to explain to a conservative gaggle of vote suppressor wannabes that the For the People Act is very popular. Not just with underrepresented voters, not just with African American voters, not just with Latino voters, not just with voters in the cities, but with Republican voters and people who are sick and tired of waiting on 10-hour lines, 8-hour lines, 6-hour lines, 2-hour lines to cast a damn ballot. They like H.R. 1. They like the For the People Act. They like the idea of taking money out of politics.
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, this is a conservative conference call that happened on January 8th, and it was leaked. The contents of it was leaked. It was a call on the voting rights bill. It was obtained by the New Yorker magazine. And this voice that you're going to hear is a man, his name is Kyle McKenzie. He is the director of research for a Koch brothers-run advocacy group called Stand Together. And poor Kyle, he had the tough job of having to break it to these conservative freaks that people don't like voter suppression. No, they really like the For the People Act. Republicans, as well as Democrats, as well as independents, old, young, people really like it.
When presented with a very neutral description of H.R. 1, people were generally supportive. And the most worrisome part, which Grover mentioned at the very beginning of his presentation, is that conservatives were actually as supportive as the general public was when they read the neutral description of H.R. 1. There's a very large chunk of conservatives who are supportive of these types of efforts. H.R. 1 stops billionaires from buying elections. Unfortunately, we found that...
Unfortunately.
That is a winning message for both, the general public and also conservatives. That simple message, but far and away resonated with people, and when they had to compare that message versus tons of other ones, they were most persuaded by that, and they found that to be most convincing and most, it riled them up the most.
They like H.R. 1. They like the idea of voting, and they like the idea of billionaires staying out of it and not buying their candidates for them and picking their candidates for them and endorsing their candidates with money. They like it. They like clean elections. They like elections that aren't purchased. They like the idea. They're very responsive to it. So, it's a very positive reaction that they have to the H.R. 1. They dig it. I'm sorry to tell you guys. I'm sorry to tell you. Because this is the kind of call that happens every single day in D.C. with legislators, with Heritage Foundation, with Grover Norquist and the Club for Growth and all these groups. They try and message or come up with a message that they can ping their conservative voters with. and get them to vote against their own best interests. And he's having a tough time doing it. I tried everything. There's more to this. He says, I really tried everything, and it's just they like it. They really do. I've tried.
Some of the messages, again, that really surprisingly were at the bottom were, if H.R. 1 passes, it could lead to more political violence. That wasn't persuasive. I think people thought maybe that was overblown, even though that is a concern that we have. And then also that the surface message, without a lot of context, that H.R. 1 silences the opposition was not helpful either. And then perhaps most sadly on the don'ts column here, the last number 5, and this is a major reason we undertook this research, was just to simply test whether the phrase cancel culture could be attached to H.R. 1 and using that to motivate the right would be helpful. Unfortunately, at least in our max diff exercise where we had messages against other messages, this concept of cancel culture didn't really resonate with people.
Yeah, no, because you can't say cancel culture in the same breath as voter suppression because you're canceling people's ability to speak. All right, so it's not going well for the Republicans with the voter suppression, and now you got corporate America on the side of voting. Wow. And sports on the side of voting. Clay in Mississippi.
Hi there.
Hey.
I'm about an hour behind, I guess, but regarding the car that rammed the Capitol barricade.
Yeah.
The right's now going to be saying, "Oh, we got to ban cars, especially blue cars."
Blue cars, yes, blue cars.
And what's up with Tucker Carlson?
I don't.
He always looks like he's so confused.
Doesn't he? He looks like a junior high school kid that's trying to understand algebra. Do you know what I mean? It's just, right? Like someone's explaining FOIL to him, and he's like, "Wait, first outside, then inside, or first inside, then outside?" Right. He always has that I smell cauliflower cooking expression on his face. I know. Well, thank you for calling me, Clay.
Thank you.
All right. Winkler. Oh, it's really Dave. Dave posing as Winkler again. Yeah. What do you want, Dave?
Hey, it's Winkler from Vancouver.
No, it's Dave. We know that you're a liar, and we get that you pose as other people.
I'm not a liar.
We entertained your bullcrap yesterday, but today I found out. Yeah, because your name isn't Winkler, and you're not from Vancouver. Your name is Dave, and we can see where you're calling from. So, what do you want?
Okay. Anyway,
yeah.
I just want to say, okay, we get it. You love Matt Gaetz. He's your boyfriend, right?
He's my boyfriend, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, how many political hit pieces can you come across, fake political hit pieces, before you realize that a lot of these things are fake, but you like to report these wild allegations as being true?
What if it's true? What are you going to do then?
Well, what if it's true?
Yeah, what if it is?
What if?
What if it is?
Well, what if it is?
What if it is?
Well, then you're damaging somebody for no reason.
No, I said that, if his dad has a tape and he's met with this lawyer, right, and his dad was working with the FBI and this tape exculpates Matt Gaetz, then it's time for us to hear it. It's time for us to see it, right? Didn't I say that? Did I say that?
That's speculation.
Yes, I did. And you're a liar and a poser and a fake and a fraud, and you think that you're going to troll me and I'm going to get, all freaked out, and you're wrong. You're wrong all the time. Brother David.
Sister, the hypocrisy, corruption, and incompetence is now Pompadour deep and climbing.
Oh, it's worse than hypocrisy. There's a difference between hypocrisy and felonies. This is a felony that they're investigating.
Exactly.
And the weird thing is that his best friend, Joel Greenberg, is charged with 33 felonies, everything from fraud to sex trafficking.
And those are actual charges.
Yes, but he was actually out on bail. And he wasn't placed back into the prison setting until he stalked his wife. On top of it.
That's what I mean. We are entering Huxley's Brave New World, but I think in many ways we are also Robert Graves' I, Claudius, and all the poisons of the earth are being brought to light. I'm just saying.
It's more like a tennis game in Infinite Jest. Okay.
It is. That's actually more accurate. Thank you, sister. Quick shout out to chat room and streaming services, RandiRhodes.com, freespeechtv.org. Do it.
Do it.
Here's the thing. President Pop is... It's like he build back better, blaze back better. It's keep on moving forward.
Yes, no, people like it. It's very interesting what people like. Republicans and conservatives and independents, they seem to like two things. They seem to like the voting, very fond of it, and they also like the build back better. They're very, very happy with it. They like it. And today the economy added back. Didn't create, but it did add back. Almost 1 million jobs came back this week.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I'd like to dedicate this clip to Winkler. His name is really Dave, and he's not from Canada, okay?
What is the atmosphere in Congress around Gates? This guy was so tight with President Trump, but it doesn't exactly seem like his Republican colleagues are rallying to his defense.
Not in the least. If you could see my text messages from some of his current and former colleagues, I actually can't repeat what some of them say on morning television.
Oh, my God.
And it's because he has not made himself popular with most of his colleagues. And again, we're talking about his fellow Republicans, John. We're talking about people who he has antagonized in the name of being, as beholden and as loyal to the former president, Donald Trump, as possible, in the name of being on conservative media, being on Fox News, being the darling of that. And the most striking example of that was after the number 3 in his own party leadership, Liz Cheney, voted her conscience, voted to impeach President Trump. He went to Wyoming and taunted her. He went to Wyoming and had a big rally. And look, that was certainly not the first time he made enemies out of people in his own Republican conference, but it was the most recent and certainly the most egregious in the eyes of many of them. And so that is the lack of reservoir of goodwill that he has at a time where he really needs it because of all of the allegations that we have been reporting on.
Oh, Winkler, Dave, whatever, liar. Let me just say this. Is it possible that the Cheneys are hunting Matt Gaetz for personal, enjoyment? I'll tell you something. If that's really what's going on here, and that it is the Cheney conservative faction going against the Matt Gaetz Trumpian faction, bring it on. I celebrate it. But, his dad says he's got a tape. And if his dad has a tape that exculpates Matt Gaetz from these horrendous charges of sex trafficking of 17-year-old girls, let's hear it. Let's have it. Let's see it. Let's listen to it. Let's examine it. Let's find out what's really going on there and get Matt Gaetz out of trouble. It is possible. It is really possible. That's because here's Matt Gaetz in Wyoming. Do you remember Liz Cheney voted to impeach Donald Trump for inciting a riot, for inciting an insurrection, right? For lying, Matt Gaetz went to Wyoming and trashed Liz Cheney.
If Liz Cheney wants to assemble her supporters and advocate her America Last policies, I invite her to do so. I'm here to be the masthead for the America First movement going forward.
Oh, that would be such a great fight. That would be a really good one. Tom in Panama City. Oh, Tom. Hi, Tom. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, that's okay.
Darlene's dad, everybody. Darlene's dad, yes.
Grandpa.
Oh, grandpa. Oh, you're a grandpa. Okay.
Yeah, I'm an old man. Just a little quick note on Matt Gaetz. We were invited to a party. His residence is over in Seaside, Florida, which is a ultra-rich area. Long story short, my daughter at that time was 17, and she brought her 16-year-old girlfriend along. And, I mean, these two girls are just like right out of Playboy. Gorgeous, gorgeous ladies. And basically, Matt Gaetz was damn near stalking them. Got them by themselves, was talking to them. I was just down the hall running that direction, and he touched the face of the 16-year-old. Found out later that he wanted them to come down on the beach and walk with him. Well,
so
I got to him, and
this was your daughter?
Yeah, my at that time, my 17-year-old daughter and her 16-year-old friend.
And how long ago was that?
Oh my God, it's been years ago. But Seaside, the house that either his father owned or
the reason why I'm asking you is because Matt Gaetz is only 38 years old. So I'm trying to figure out how old he was when he approached your 17-year-old.
I'm gonna say 36 because she's 19.
Oh, she's only 19 now.
Now, yeah.
Okay.
The thing of it was totally inappropriate, and the girls came to me just freaked out, because who is this no-lip creep? He has no upper lip, and I finally got a hold of him and had a little talk with him. I didn't touch him, but I came real close. Just that's the kind of guy. Yeah, that's the kind of guy he is. There was no publicity. I wish there was somebody that...
whether he's guilty of this, felony or not, he is a smarmy little bastard. I mean, there's no question about it.
No, I think he's a borderline pedophile.
Ew.
He likes the youngsters.
That's gross.
And, the girls were gorgeous. I mean, they're, like I said, right out of Playboy. Women have progressed quite a bit physically since I was around. It just, I wanted to yank his head off, to be honest with you,
I hear you. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty gross if it's true. Jill in Jupiter. Is this Jill? No, this is Benjamin in Mississippi.
Hi, I just, is this the program to call in to just make blanket assertions about people with no evidence to back it up?
No, this is the reading the New York Times, reading the Washington Post,
okay.
listening to reporters who cover Capitol Hill read their text messages on the air and say that there's no support for this man in Congress. That's what this is.
Oh, okay.
Speaking. All right. Jill in Jupiter.
Randy, first off, happy freaking Friday. I haven't had a chance to say that to you in a long time.
Thank you.
I was calling about Matt and Joel. I'm just so glad that they're inept. Because they're not even good with their criminality. They're so sloppy, they don't know how to cover up their own mess, so they're quite exposed. And that's just given me...
Do you know them?
No. But just from listening to what you reported on the show today, I have heard things, just tangentially. I've been paying more attention to the show.
I want people who don't know what a newspaper is. I would love for you to go to randirhodes.com, and I would love for you to read the Washington Post article, the New York Times article, the CNN article, the Daily Beast reporting, and the national reporters that cover Capitol Hill, for a living. That if they lie, they would A, be fired, and B, they would be sued for defamation if what they were writing was false, knowingly false, right? I would love for you to read what I rely on to do this show. And I would love for them to understand that if you are defaming somebody based on nothing, that you not only lose your job, but you also get sued. Like, like Tucker Carlson gets sued. Like Fox gets sued by, Smartmatic for $1 billion. Or Fox gets sued by, what's the name of the other voting machine?
can't recall.
That just sued Fox News for $1.3 billion. Oh, Dominion. Right, Dominion. You know, if you lie like that, if you lie like Fox News does, if you lie like Tucker Carlson does, if you lie like Sidney Powell does, if you lie in court like Rudy Giuliani does, you know, there's a price to pay. You understand? You can't just lie and get away with it. This is, after all, America. And we do have defamation laws. And it used to be that the only defense to a defamation lawsuit was, no, it was true. Right? The truth is a complete defense to these lawsuits. And that's why reporters make sure that they're reporting the truth with documentation, with, you know, in the case of Matt Gaetz, they're reporting that there is a paper trail of payments that happened on Apple Pay and happened on other online payment apps, right? So anyway, if they're lying about that, then not only would they lose their jobs, but they would get sued. Well, Fox has perfected the art of lying to the point where what they claim in court now is that no reasonable person who watches that channel, who watches Fox News or OAN, or, you know, that no reasonable person would believe the bullcrap that they spew. Right? That everybody watching understands that they're lying. That is the defense that Tucker Carlson made in court. That is the defense Sidney Powell, the lawyer, is making. Wow. And you call me? Have a great weekend.